Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome back to the Manc Entrepreneur YouTube channel. And in today's episode, I'm sharing with you the story about how in the past 9 months, we've managed to take a website from literally zero to doing 18,000 visitors a month. And that is the story behind esellercafe.com. Now, this came about. It was an idea myself and Matt had maybe 4 years ago. And back 4 years ago, we were not in a place to action, or we weren't in a place to give the attention needed to a task like esellercafe.com. And then earlier this year, the idea came back up, I think, in a meeting in February. And we knew that myself and Matt, we couldn't do this alone. We needed someone else. And just so happened, we knew the perfect person for that task. And that was Richard, who, if you haven't met Richard yet, we've done an interview. He's told his sort of entrepreneurial story. And also in the last actual episode before this one, episode 191, I believe, of the Manc Entrepreneur series, Richard joins me to talk about tax in the US and sales tax if you are selling from the UK to the US. But besides all that, Richard was the perfect candidate. He is based in Florida. He knew e-commerce inside out. And we went for it. And like I said, we started this. The target we'd seen is that in the UK, there is a leading e-commerce news website, and they do a fantastic job. I can't take anything away from them. They have done for years, and hats off to the creators, to the founders of that website. They do a great job. I have immense respect and time for both of them. I'd like to class them as friends. However, in the USA, I couldn't really say the same. There was an e-commerce news website in the USA that had been around for years, but it was incredibly, incredibly negative. Everything was negatively framed. And that was, sorry, I got something in my eye. The negative energy and the negative attitude and slant of the posts was coming across in the comment section of the readers. You know, the readers were taking on board this sort of negative, I won't say persona, but they were getting on board with this negative bandwagon. And sometimes, yes, we have to call the news sort of as it is, and sometimes it's not good news, and we have to hold them to account. However, there was some very questionable stories where they were going really overly negative on things which weren't negative. And it was a running joke between me, Matt, and Richard for the past few years that this site was just so negative. It was more of an opinion piece than a news piece, and we didn't really like it. And then we said, well, we could do better. So we figured America needs an e-commerce news website which tells the news as it is, with but rather than having sort of a negative slant, we're going to have an entrepreneurial slant to it. It's like we react. If things change, we react to it, and that's the angle we would take. And that's where eSeller Cafe was born, and that's, you know, where we had the idea. And myself and Matt had obviously built websites in the past, and Matt has been incredible at building followings before now. So we weren't new to this. We knew it would take a lot of time and a lot of effort. And it's largely those two things. You know, if you're going to go from, you know, if you're going to see any type of growth in website traffic, you can throw money at it, but ultimately it's still going to need some time. And that's exactly what we did. So we started out, and what I've actually got up on this page right here is, I'll share my screen with you as well, so you can actually see the stats of what I'm looking at. 1 second. Where's so if we go to there, this will give you an idea as well, because this is quite some of our big wins came from this. So So I'll share the screen. You'll get an idea of the stats, and I'll sort of talk you through them as we go. So if this one, share screen, map screen, there we go. Okay, you should be able to see the screen now. And this, we use Stat Counter to report the stats on the site. And like I said, I'm hiding nothing here. We started, like I said, the idea came about in February, and we launched early March, I believe, and these are the monthly visitors. And as you can see, November we hit 18,000 site visitors, and 14,000 of which were unique. And as you can see, that graph is it's a nice upward trend that we're seeing there. And that's, like I said, the key to this growth is actually quite simple. It's all come about from the fact that when creating a news website, you literally just have to create content. And it's the same for any sort of blog. Can you imagine how disheartening it was? Me, Matt and Richard were really excited when we had this idea and this concept. We decided to go ahead with it. And we were publishing content, we were writing stories, spending so much time putting content out there. And to begin with, nobody was reading it. Then maybe 5 people would read a story that we'd spent so long getting together and we knew was good. And that is the disheartening thing. And that's what everybody who gets into content creation is going to have to go through. It's exactly the same when I started this YouTube channel. I started this YouTube channel, and I think I managed to get, I think maybe 20 subscribers by sort of close friends, and that was largely it. And a few people who knew me through e-commerce things. And you put so much time and effort into recording videos that you thought would be useful for people. I'd back then be spending 3 hours doing the upload to YouTube. It would take forever. And then maybe 15 people would watch the video. And that is the hardest part. The hardest time to not get disheartened is when you're putting so much effort in and you're seeing no results. But it's at that time when most people would give up that you have to carry on in the trust that what you are building will become useful. So again, going back to the graph, we started off with around 1,000 monthly visitors in March. We doubled that to 2,000 in April. We grew by 50% in May, taking up to about 3,000. We then nearly doubled it in June. July was about the same, which we sort of expected due to seasonality. And then we doubled it into August, obviously the run up to back to school and all the rest of it. There's lots of good news as well in August. I think we had our busiest ever day in August. I'll come on to that story in a minute. September, we grew sort of minimally. We were growing the unique visits, but the sort of monthly visits were staying the same. And then November, we grew by, I think, about 40% again to 18,000 monthly visitors. And, we now have, like I said, the website has now been monetized due to the traffic that we're generating. We've now seen, advertisers and sponsors are seeing value, which is great. We've now brought on another member of the team to help with creating content. And also, I would hasten to add that obviously I already have myself and Matt already have a virtual assistant who's fantastic, and she's been an absolute godsend in regards to creating artwork and stuff for the site. So again, we have had a little bit of help there, but largely, Matt has been very much sort of a silent entity in this. Myself and Richard have been the main driving force. Richard more so. Richard's been fantastic, and I think when it came somewhat like, I'll go back to the success story with August. For anyone who doesn't know, Hal Lawton, you may not know the name. He was quite a big deal in eBay USA. He actually left eBay and went to Macy's in August. And I believe we were one of the first to cover that story. So much so that Google News, if you typed in Hal Lawton, we were the first thing to show up. We were the first entry to show up. That generated so much traffic for us. And that's a huge thing I would say there is Google News. We didn't jump on Google News straight away. I think that was probably the spike we saw in June. We made sure that our website was feeding through new posts to Google News. We made sure that all of our content was formatted in a way that Google liked, and that our site was as Google liked, which it's hard not to be because, again, we're creating unique content every day. And Google has been a huge help in driving us traffic. One of the stories that did so well in November was Google News Australia picked us up because Google, funnily enough, Google shopping results were showing that they changed the name of Christmas Day to Day of the Family or something. We did a story on that, and that blew up as well in Australia. So we also noticed that as we attempted to build a website, an e-commerce news website targeted at America, obviously I'm based in the UK, so I can cover stories based in the UK. We also have links to Australia, and there's been lots of news with Australia, obviously Amazon Australia and all that sort of stuff kicking off, that we've been seeing sort of traffic come globally to the site. And now we sort of target news to all different areas of the world, wherever we find it's relevant and we know we have a readership from. So largely the largest driver of how we went from 0 to 18,000 in 9 months is literally just relentlessly publishing content, creating content. That is the key thing. Putting out new content, started growing an email list, emailing them once or twice a week with the new news of what's going on. And I mean, Twitter as well. We set up an esellercafe Twitter account, and Twitter seemed to be a fantastic route for us to go down. I'm looking at the Twitter account now. It's literally at esellercafe. We have over nearly 1,700 followers in 9 months, and I promise you, we've never used a bot to follow any, automated accounts, anything like that. They're all genuine follows. And we've tweeted 7,000 times. So again, we found Twitter. There's great conversations regarding e-commerce and stuff on Twitter. And by being involved in those conversations, people were coming to the site. So it really has been a journey. But I think that myself, Matt, and Richard came into this saying, realistically, we're not going to be making any money from this website until at least 18 to 24 months. And we monetized it within 8, I think, which sort of proved the concept incredibly, incredibly well. Now, the other thing I want to share with you is when it comes down to the content creation, I think this is something which we do very well. And I don't think, and I may be wrong in saying this, but I don't think there's many other e-commerce news websites which cover as many bases as we do when it comes to content creation. And Richard often jokes with me that we are the e-commerce kings of all digital media. That is a total joke. We would never crown ourselves as such, but that's something that we're aiming for. So, for example, we create written content. That's the main thing. And we try to get breaking news content, whether that be press releases from Amazon, eBay, Etsy, whatever's going on in e-commerce. We have processes set up in the background. So as soon as news breaks, it emails one of us and we hear about it firsthand. We're also now in a situation where the e-commerce industry as a whole is becoming aware about us, and they're actually reaching out to us with embargoed news. So they'll tell us news before it's officially allowed to be released, in order so that we can get stories together and we can be some of the first to get news out there when that news goes live, which is a fantastic position to be in, a very privileged one, and one which we take very, very seriously. So again, it's like growing that reputation. But again, Richard has been fantastic with social in terms of Twitter. We are now paying more attention to Facebook regarding a page, and we've just set up a Facebook group as well to encourage discussion amongst e-commerce sellers or just people involved in e-commerce generally. Like I said, the blog is the main piece. We have like news going on there every single day. Richard and myself are constantly looking at ways we can optimize the website, make it easier to use, easier to display. But then importantly, we take that news from the written content, and once a week we do a video. We do an e-commerce news show live on YouTube every Monday so that people can then consume in video format if they prefer. And myself and Richard can talk for anywhere from 40 minutes to an hour and a half about the events that have gone on in the previous week. So then, like I said, we're now covering social, blog, email, and video. And that wasn't enough. So I went and took the video content that we did for YouTube and spun that into podcast. We took the audio and now put it onto iTunes and TuneIn and Google Play, so that if people want to consume podcast audio content, they can now do that as well. And then we took it a stage further and took that audio content and put it into voice. So now your Amazon Echo device, anything with Alexa on, can now play you the podcast as well. So that's now, we're now doing written content, social media content, email, video, audio, and voice. And that is, I think, one of the key reasons why we do so well, or why we've grown so quickly. We are reaching people in whatever medium they want or they prefer to consume media. We cannot be so arrogant as to say we've written a blog post so you have to read it. If people don't like reading, then hell, I'll tell you about the news. You can tune in and watch me live on YouTube and face to face, and we can chat about the news. If you cannot watch but you prefer to just listen, stick your headphones in on the commute home. I can tell you what's going on in the news around the world of e-commerce. And I think that is such a pivotal thing. People follow us on social if they prefer to, if they spend time on Twitter, on Facebook groups or pages, they can consume our information there. They know that we will provide them the latest updates there. And I think that's the key message, is that if you are going to start a website, or if you're starting any sort of blogging site or any sort of news website and you're trying to grow a following, the first one is literally keep creating content. Don't, especially if it is a blog or a news website and you're pure, not for an e-commerce store. If you're selling, then selling is your core business. If you're creating news and creating content, that is your main business. You need to be doing that multiple times a day. We said, what would happen if some days there's no news? It's very, very rare that there is no news. And on days where there is no news, that's when we can rely on our expertise and share with you knowledge pieces rather than news pieces. We can say why you should look at outsourcing or using overseas suppliers, 5 ways you can optimize your social media campaigns. We can start sharing content like that on slow news days. So like I said, number one is content. Content is king, and it really is just a case of pushing stuff out there. And I should say the second most important thing to do is be in as many places as possible, but do it well. Like we started with the blog. The blog was the main thing. It was the only thing that we did. Then we added in social links, and to Twitter mainly. That's where we saw most traction, and now with Facebook pages and groups. And then we started an email list and started being able to email people like sort of bi-weekly emails about what the latest goings on were. And then we turned it into a video because, oh, hell, we can do a video on this. And then we turned that into audio, and now we've turned it into voice. And it's like it's one piece of content which we've managed to repurpose maybe 5 or 6 times to whatever medium people prefer to consume on. I'd say that's important. Know where your audience is and go and make content there. And the reality is your audience is pretty much everywhere. So if you want to know how to grow a website, or how to go from literally 0 to 18, 20,000 views a month and more. Like we have such an aggressive like plan now for Eseller Cafe going into 2018, just through like the numbers that we've seen already, and we know so few people know who we are. But it was a very nice fact that when the Amazon treasure truck came to Manchester a couple of weeks ago, and I went there with my phone and took a few pictures, one of the marketing team came up to me and went, oh, introduce themselves, and I said, oh, hi, I'm Dave. I run a website called Eseller Cafe. You've probably not heard of it. And they went, oh, no, we know Eseller Cafe. You did a story about us coming to the UK last week. And I was like, yeah, we did. And we didn't send that to Amazon. Amazon found us. So it's nice to know that what you're doing is being recognized. And the only way you'll get to that level is by going through the hard bit first. Is publishing content, writing content, spending hours and hours and hours putting stuff out there which you know nobody's reading, but they will. If you carry on, they will. It's like I said, exactly the same as this YouTube channel. In the early days, I was talking to myself, and now, I mean, I keep saying it, I'm by no means a massive YouTuber, but over 500 subscribers, I'm very happy with. And I will continue to hopefully help this channel grow by putting content like this out there. And that's exactly the same with any sort of news website. You just got to keep putting stuff out there, keep it up to date, and go where the audience is. So that is why that's basically the story of esellercafe.com so far. If you are an e-commerce seller, go and check it out. You can subscribe to the mailing list on the website. You should see a pop-up appear. Just put your details in there. We do not spam you, I promise you. We send maybe 1 or 2 emails a week, literally just highlighting the news from that week, keeping you up to date with the key things that are going on. Obviously, you can unsubscribe at any time if you're not into that. But like I said, it's a good way to be kept up to date with what's going on in the world of e-commerce. Yeah, and that's it. Like I said, that's the story that I want to share with you. We all are, myself, Richard, Matt, we're all incredibly impressed with what Eseller Cafe has done in a short space of time, and we've got very exciting, big hopes and plans for it for 2018. So with that said, if you've enjoyed this video, please hit that thumbs up button down below. If you have any questions about either Eseller Cafe or, again, anything about content creation, let me know in the comments section. I will do my best to get back to you. And if you're new here, subscribe. Like I said, there's new content every single weekday. Bit of a little bonus one. I have been working on a website for the Manc Entrepreneur. There's not much on there right now. I think it's mancentrepreneur.com. I also think mancentrepreneur.co.uk redirects to .com. At the minute, it's just a feed of YouTube videos, but there will be more stuff appearing on there between now and the new year. So keep an eye on that. Obviously, I'll tell you more when it's all properly live. With that said, I believe I've got one more video for you before Christmas. So with that said, I'll see you then. Enjoy the rest of your week. Don't work too hard, and I'll catch you in the next video. See you then.